Good afternoon, everyone. I've got 4:30. It's December 8th, 2022. I'd like to call the McLeod County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we've got a lot to do this afternoon into the evening, so we'll move right along. Consideration of agenda items. Any changes or additions?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Move to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Changes or additions?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Luthens, seconded by Commissioner Smalls. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, I guess we're 4:33 public hearing. I guess we're on time.
Move to open the
Liz?
open the public hearing.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is now open.
Hello, I'm asking for you to consider approving the proposed McLeod County Business Development Policy. This policy would meet requirements outlined in Minnesota Statutes 116J.993 through 116J.995 and 469.1812 through 469.1815 related to business subsidies and property tax abatements. The proposed policy has been recommended for approval by the McLeod County Economic Development Committee, reviewed by County Attorney Michael Young, and was discussed at a county board workshop on October 4th, 2022. A public hearing notice for this meeting was published in the McLeod County Chronicle on November 23rd, November 30th, and December 7th, 2022. A copy of the public hearing notice and the proposed policy were also published on the website, the McLeod County website, on November 4th through today, and also available in the County Administration Office here in the McLeod County Government Center.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Any comments before we open it to the public from the commissioners? Seeing none, anybody from the public wish to address? If you do, come to the mic and state your name and who you represent.
Donald Albrecht, basically I'm representing myself as a citizen of McLeod County, although it has been discussed with the Township Association Board of Directors. I basically have several questions, basically going back to the committee that is going to be overseeing this. The county board is the final say, but you have appointed a committee to make recommendations to the county board. Is there any criteria for who serves on that committee?
Liz, do you want to talk?
Do you want to talk about the criteria? I can make some comments, but I'll listen to what you've got to say.
Yeah, I don't have the actual criteria of the different appointments, but currently our committee is made up of 2 commissioners, which are appointed on an annual basis. And then the remainder of the appointments are between 2 and 3 year terms, and they're made up of community members. We have various business owners, bank representatives, and city representatives as well, and one township representative too.
I could add, Mr. Chair, the Economic Development Committee members are they serve a 2 or a 3 year term, and that was staggered because it's a newer committee, as you know. So that's been in place for we're ending on 2 years now. Some of the committee members' appointments will be coming up to term. They will serve that for, they can serve 3-year terms for any added committee members. So if there were any appointed after that initial set, then those would be 3-year terms. They're represented by 2 county commissioners. Indefinite terms are listed, and that would be for the ex officio members, including myself as the county administrator, so that's a member of that committee, the finance director for McLeod County, the environmental services director, and also the economic development coordinator, which is Liz Danielson. So Mark Teletsky being the environmental services director. And then they were voted on by the county board, the other remaining members of the of the committee, which currently, as of today, is Adam Burkholz, representing the city of Winstead, Gail Hazy, representing Security Bank and Trust, and also a community member, so all of the people listed live within the county. No longer on that committee is Don Martinez. He had to resign just because of a time conflict. Then we have Carl Pinsky in Plato, and also representing a business owner, and then Craig Powell, who is a business owner and also a township supervisor. They are not strict if you're looking for like which thing that the person has to be. They do not have to be a certain representative of a business or a certain type of business or whatever that may be. Does that answer your question, Mr. Albright?
Well, I followed through and going back to 2020 when you appointed the initial committee.
Yep.
But as it goes through, the commissioners have the right at any time to change that committee or the membership on it without a public hearing, I believe.
Yes, just like any other committee, I believe.
Okay. That answers one question, and then we get to page 2. I was just looking at business subsidies not included in the following, and it lists $150,000 worth of spending. Can that committee recommend $150,000 worth of funds without it having to come to the public hearing?
No, well, without it coming to the county board, no. Any spending that would be recommended by the Economic Development Committee, it's not an authority, that would go through to the county board.
Correct.
Just like the Coronavirus Relief Fund and other committees, those spending recommendations go through to the county board as a recommendation.
Okay. And will the county board be taking part in any of the proceedings utilizing their eminent domain powers?
Mr. Chair?
Where would that
Yeah,
fall
where'd
into
that
place?
come
I'm not exactly sure where it may come into play, although as it goes through in some of the suggestions and building and so forth, if someone wants to extend a property and needs more space and so on, and
Yep.
they need to get a hold of it, I'm just wondering if there would be a chance that the county would be asked to do an eminent domain.
Mr. Chair?
Sounds
Go
pretty
ahead.
far-fetched.
I'm sorry, so an economic development authority might exercise certain eminent domain powers. We don't have our county attorney here today, you can see that, he's at a conference today. But this is an economic development committee, so it is different than an authority. It's not a taxing authority. Anything that's regularly done by the county board would still be done as it is today, or it has been done in the past. This doesn't change.
And I could be
any of that.
sharper on it. If I can speak for myself, but I am the chair, but I have no desire to use eminent domain, but I'd never say never. I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I said never. So there could be an asking for eminent domain, the use of that, but it still would have to clear the commissioners. And I'm not a lawyer either, but
Well,
that's my personal.
Just looking through the types of things that you've got listed that could come into play and how you would like to help businesses or whatever it is that you're going to be working with, there is that potential for that to happen.
And I don't know, I can't argue with that statement, because that's why I'd never say never. It can be asked for, that doesn't mean you'll get it.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So the power of the county board does not change. If that were going to be done as a county board, the Economic Development Committee they don't exercise that authority. It's a committee, so the committee does not exercise that authority.
No, the committee would have to recommend it to the county board, and then the county board would have to act on it at a public hearing
Just like they
before
would have
they
to do
would,
today.
would actually be able to apply it.
That is
I
the correct
realize that.
process, you're right. And there's 2 county commissioners on this committee, which still doesn't mean it couldn't be moved forward, but you're correct on that procedure.
Whatever is taken today and required today would still be required regardless, because it's a committee and not an authority.
Okay. Then when I get looking at the tax abatement, your policy for that, basically on page, anyway, you're numbered 1 through 10. And you have number 9 is blank. Is that a typographical error? Should there only be 9 items listed? Or why is that left blank? And according to what was printed on the website for today's agenda, it also lists that with that number 9 blank. So I'm just wondering if this is a document that you're going to sign or ask the commissioners to sign after the public hearing today. I do believe it needs to be cleaned up.
Thank you. Well,
I think that is a formatting error, and I'll
okay.
correct it.
So it's just a clerical error.
Yes, I'll verify that, but that's my understanding. We had one more item listed in there in the draft format, and that was removed in the red line, and the number must not have come out when I cleared
Okay.
the red lines.
What is that?
Okay.
I'm trying to pull it up to see it, so I'm sorry. I can't see exactly what you're speaking to, but Liz did draft the final edited copy, and so she would know better than I would.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
The other thing,
Trying. I have slow internet right now, I'm sorry. Thank
What's
you.
the overall page number, please?
I'm CDOT.
So
Mr. Chair?
it's a typographical error that, like Liz noted, and we can find that in a moment, but
yep.
It was in the list of criteria, and we had discussed one of the criteria during the draft processes and decided to remove it, and that's where that one was. And so the number didn't get removed along with the wording of it.
we'll find the electronic page number as well shortly. Mine's not popping up, but Commissioner Nagel is going to pull it up.
And I've got several items. One I will leave for Tony to probably address. The other one is the recapture of abatement on your policy. Basically, in your initial policy, there is no way of theoretically of forgiveness. You're expecting if you're lending money out, it's all going to come back. There's no interest rates listed and so on. I'm assuming those will be part of the application and the approval. As you work through that, the committee will give you a recommendation. The commissioners will work with that. But when you do your, if you go back to the recapture on the abatement form, basically it leaves it up to the taxing authority if they want to review on a case-by-case basis. Is that to forgive the abatement or any funds that were given to the individual or business that had made application? Is that wide open to the county board to decide whether they want to do a forgiveness, or, and if that is the case, it leads to another question: where are the funds going to be coming from to operate the program in the amounts that you may be giving out?
Liz, we have never, we're just in the negotiating part of a revolving loan fund. That I don't think we have gone through it to the tax abatement, and I'm not gonna try to be the expert on tax abatements, but they are usually designated for a number of years at a certain percent, and I don't know I mean, that's not a payback deal. The paybacks usually come in the form, or they argue them in the form of they will be paying taxes after they get their businesses up and running. So I'm a little, my inexperience in that field is showing, but I don't know that other than revolving loan funds or matching grants that have to be paid back, I don't know in abatements, and somebody can help me out with that if they want, but abatements is all set up. That's why it's always usually as debatable as it is, or controversial, because you're forgiving a portion or somebody's taxes for X amount of time, and there really is no payback to that, and there may be places where they can put that in. I don't know how you would do that.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So it states at the beginning of the tax abatement portion of the policy, which is electronic page 216, that the following guidelines are intended to provide a uniform set of standards and procedures for McLeod County. So you're speaking on the taxing authority again. I want to make sure you know that we're not talking about that economic development committee. That'd be the county. To follow when utilizing tax abatements in conjunction with Minnesota state statute. So it would be in line with statute.
Okay, well, I guess, but it still leaves it up to the county board.
Within
Any funds
statute.
that they may put out to the individual or business, they could write those off if the governing board decided to do so.
So if that. Clearly, we've been over that before at the county board. I see the formatting error, number 9. Obviously an oversight that we can remove. This has been gone over in several meetings. I think we named off 2. It's also been in the newspaper 4 times. So of course, if there was something where an abatement was going to go through, it would be at the county board. And again, if there was concern with that consideration, I would think that the public would be encouraged to attend.
Well,
I don't know if that helps, but
Well,
it's not like the county board can change it without it going through the process.
basically, you have it set up in your policy, but when you come to the tax abatement application, the last item before it's lists of other criteria, imposition of any recapture is at the sole discretion of the taxing authority and is reviewed and considered on a case-by-case basis. Reason for recapture of benefits outlined in the business development policy. So if I'm reading that last sentence, that gives the committee the right to make a recommendation to the county board that we feel that the county board should not require full repayment of funds that were put out to the individual or business.
Or they could
So-
recommend that they require full payment,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, yes, we realize that.
Okay.
That's part of
Or you're
the
just
way you
focusing,
set
you're
up
just
for your
focusing on
public
the one
hearing.
part.
I would
Mr.
say
Chair?
too that is the case-by-case basis. I mean, obviously, the control comes back to the county board, and I think we go around in circles on that. The control will be here at the county board, and anything could be, everything's kind of in play. I could use the one we just went through with a motel asking us, we chose not to. Now, the
Correct.
other taxing authorities chose to without any forgiveness that I'm aware of. But with that case-by-case basis, I don't know how else you would do it. The control still remains, your bottom line question would be, the control still sits here with the board.
Yes,
All
correct.
control would be here with the board.
Mr. Chair?
And we've been emphasizing that, Commissioner Wright and I have been ramrodding, my
Commissioner
words
Krieger,
again.
I realize that
But
according
I
to
mean,
the way you're
we've
set
been,
up.
very important that the county board remains under we're running the show.
Correct, correct.
The
Mr.
control
Chair.
is here. Go ahead.
I think it's really important that you refer, if you have it in front of you, page 218 covers all of your concern. There's a public hearing anytime an abatement application is being considered. It has to be within statute. Yes, the Economic Development Committee can make an educated recommendation to the
Yep.
county board, but that doesn't occur without it going through the same process as this policy. So it's not like we'll just
Does
look
that,
through.
is that required to be a public hearing
It says it
for
on
them to
page-
make that
yes.
decision? Okay.
Yeah, so page 218, which is the electronic page of our packet. So I apologize for that, but it's page 3 of the tax abatement application information. It talks about that. If you want to look at that a little further, and if you have concern, let us know. That's helpful.
Mr. Chair, I'll also say that the reference in that page 2 that you just mentioned, Sheila, goes back to page number 8 of the business development policy, which talks about penalty for failure to follow policy. And that's where that, I think that recapture of the abatement is coming back to, is if it wouldn't comply with the policy that it was approved on, or if it didn't comply with state statute, then it outlines the procedure for that. I'm sorry, I don't know what page it is in the electronic packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And my last comment is I'm gonna be the first to admit that we're trying to get started here. I believe there's value in an economic development, if it's run properly, both for rural and urban. And we're gonna have some growing pains, there's no doubt about it, but I think I believe we're on the right path here, and we really have to start by approving, a policy that we may have to correct or add into or alter a little bit, but.
I fully appreciate that. I realized over the last 2 years, getting this set up and going and what the idea, where we were headed, I just thought there possibly would be a little more teeth in it or direction, because it's in a way left wide open to the county board to make amendments and changes to this as they go along, but and it is in there that, yes, we'll have to have a public hearing if you're going to change it. But just to make sure that
And again,
nothing gets away.
I would agree with you on the I don't know where to put them. I mean, to be quite honest, that's the growing pains of this. I think we will eventually tweak it into an easier policy to follow, because it's gonna be easier to set standards of what you can apply for and what you can't. But at this time, and I had talked to you earlier, and I thought these were good questions, so I expected these coming, and I actually do appreciate the questions. Excuse me, but I mean, it's a growing, it's gonna be a moving, growing procedure.
And I just ask that hopefully the advisory committee that keeps following through with this is educated well enough in the issues to advise the county board. Thank you.
Tony, your name and where you represent?
Good afternoon, Tony Houseland, Winston Township. I'm here to represent myself, but then also to understand a little bit more, so we can explain it to our constituents in the townships. But couple things, just trying to understand a little bit when I look at this. Once again, I think Doug, kind of reiterate what you're saying is the economic development is something we should support and we need to do. One thing I'm trying to understand a little bit and trying to educate myself and, others as we go forward here, when you look at this, basically the county, is collecting tax dollars from everybody, but then where is this money gonna go? So if I ask what percentage of economic development is gonna happen in townships versus cities, what would you guys estimate? And ladies, sorry.
Well, I can start. I have no clue. We're trying to put a committee and an economic. We've got Liz. I mean, we're putting things into it, and I personally have emphasized, and I think the rest have too, to look at all, ag, farming. We're a farming county, and she's been directed to look at what we can provide. I mean, I don't know I don't know what we can have when I don't know what we can get. So, I mean, it's gonna be back to that case by say. I wouldn't know where to start, trying to guess the percentages. I
Mr.
do know
Chair.
I'm excited with this already, with just your township and your city up there. I mean, there's a lot of growth up there that we should whether it's housing or other stuff, so I have no idea where the preference would be.
I think in the past, we've had, I think we just talked about 4 cities that have actively been involved in economic development, and now as the county is pursuing this for the first time ever, we are countywide, no matter if you're in a township or a city, no matter the size of the city. This puts a level playing field, so I'm looking for growth in any place. I don't really, I'm not going to be looking for one or the other. I'm just looking for something inside our county borders. But this makes it a fair playing field for growth, no matter if you're in a city or in a township.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, I mean, that's considered as we go forward, because, I mean, as we look going ahead, I mean, Liz and I have talked about this over, some discussions, and, a lot of the economic development occurs in the cities. I mean, that's where we've kind of funneled everything into. And that's where, so one of the things I'd really want this board to consider is the fact that, we talk about where we want to follow the comprehensive development plan that the county has, which is from 1995. So one recommendation I would have is that I think that needs to be looked at, because in the past, what's happened is we've tried to look at keeping the ag land ag, and then we funnel all the business development into the cities. So we got to be careful, because so that we don't try and collect taxes from everybody, but then only funnel it back into the cities. So I think that's the concern, and how we basically present that to the townships to make sure it's fair and equitable. So will there be and can there be economic development in the townships? Yes, I hope there can be. I hope the entry requirements, allow that it doesn't say we have to have 10 jobs. What if somebody opens up a machine shop? Can he get tax abatement? I don't know.
And I think Tony, I think your point's well taken. I mean, and again, I'm talking for myself, because I've been involved in this and trying to understand. It's not always been my cup of tea, but I really do see the value in it. But, this work has to be done, or
Understood.
evaluating where the need is. So whether you're a township or a rural business, that we can put forward grants that are available. We're trying to make sure we're tied in with the mid-Minnesotas, any grants, because by the
Yep.
time, it's like we're the fish biting. By the time you find out where they are, it's too late.
Yep, no,
You
understood,
have to be on
understood.
top of this ahead of time.
And Liz has done a great job explaining that she's basically connecting the kind of those components. But I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight that we're not just
I agree.
getting tax money from everybody and funneling it into one area. I think that's the concern, and that everyone's brought up for a long time.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I haven't heard that concern at all, actually, and I don't fully agree, because we've discussed it, that,
I have an example of it.
okay, we've had several meetings and I haven't heard about it from you, so I just am surprised to hear it, because if something great happens in your city, which your township's next to, or where your school is, and it's within the county that you're in, it does have a spread positive impact. That's the intent. And like Commissioner Wright said, no, there is not a specific percentage on one space, because what if there is the best thing for the township 2 years in a row, and there isn't an opportunity in the city? I think it's focused on making good intentional decisions based on the availability of what is best at that point in time for the program, for the county, has the best amount of spread of economic and financial positive impact. So I think that's been discussed several times, and that's my understanding that people were good with that. So a little surprised at the thought that people are viewing this negatively. We have not heard that feedback.
Well, I'll give you an example. So up in Winsted, there's actually a company called M&N Structures. So back in there, I think early 2000, they actually came to Winsted Township, had a plan, was going to build out in Winsted Township, came to the county denied it. County said, we want to keep ag land. So they went to the city of Winsted then, they built in the city of Winsted. Everything gets funneled into the city of Winsted.
When was that?
I'd have to go back and look
Well,
at
I
the
can
exact
add,
time.
and I don't know about that specific part, but just creating it in my head right now, we have an ordinance that was passed by the county to preserve prime farmland. And that, if that was under that ordinance, that would explain that to me, and I don't know, I mean, we can make sure when we go forward here to put that in play, but just like with our solar, that's where we had to go to battle to protect prime farmland, so I'm a little,
Tony, sorry, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
was there more to it than just the prime farmland? And I only asked,
That was the grounds of why it was denied.
and that's it.
Yep.
And the reason I ask is 'cause I just ran into one in Tacoma Township, and it became a zoning thing. I mean, it was more, I remember enough to be dangerous about this, but they, it became a lot of that conversation regarding the, some zoning things. And I wish Mr. Teletsky was here, because he would do that, because we went to bat with the county attorney trying to figure out a way for this to happen out in Tacoma Township, and there was some roadblocks with that. So I guess that was part of why I asked the question, was there more to it than that? But the chairman's right, we have that ordinance in place, and that's been supported, regarding protecting the prime farmland, but, in fact, we went to court over it, over solar gardens, right?
Yeah.
And lost.
And I've heard it also with, and I think this is a good reason to support at least our form of economic development, is to take that into consideration. I don't know when that scale tips, or if we need to tweak some of them ordinances or not, but I mean, I've heard the same thing with building homes. I mean, personally, I'm representing, well, as Winstead up north a little more, I'm close to the metropolitan area. Quite frankly, I would, in an organized manner, I would love to see more homes built here in McLeod County for the tax part. But there is a certain, like I said, I wish Mark was here too, but you can only build so many homes too, and you don't want to make them hurdles too high.
Yep, agreed. I think we need to continue down this path. It's keeping those things in consideration so that we're not basically robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, and I
we
think
need-
that's a fair point, but, because these have been the challenges of me getting support to the economic development too. I've lived through those challenges from years ago, and some of them are stigmas, and some of them are real points that we need to put into consideration in developing our economic development.
There is development we need to do out here. There's programs out there. Liz is doing a great job trying to connect those dots for people that want to develop out here, but I just want to make sure we kind of keep the prize in front of us so that we're not, just giving to one area and taking from another. So, it's just so that we can explain to our constituents as to why this is a good thing. So, but that was my main point. But the one thing I would consider though is I think we need to take a look at that 30-year-old development plan for the county. I actually was kind of surprised when I went and looked at it today. It's from 1995, so.
There's
There's a-
city statutes for the age of their comprehensive plans, and there's not the same statute for counties. It's not the same length of time. But I'm not saying it doesn't need to be redone. I just was surprised by it as well when I looked it up, because I
Yeah.
thought. But one thing I just want to add, Mr. Chair, is we know that we have good citizens and good involved townships and cities and people that speak with all of us on a really, continuous basis. We have Liz out there, of course, you and Liz connected. That shows us that things are working, because you knew where to come today, you knew who to talk to, you know that we're accessible to you, and we are interested in what all of you have to say. So thank you for coming tonight.
I just want to make sure it's accessible to everybody if they're in the township or a city, so.
That's why we're doing it.
And maybe Liz already knew it. That's good. That was good information. I didn't know there was a plan that was dated back to the 90s. That'd be very interesting to look at that.
So, okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, from the comments we've heard, from the day that we started this to our discussion in all of our committee meetings, it's always been about county-wide. There's never been anything out there about favoring even one side of the county versus the other. This has always been a benefit to communities that are very actively engaged in economic development and those that have nothing to offer. And whether it's rural areas or whether it is developed areas, the county will gain by any development that takes place. And that's been our goal, and that's been the comments on all the committee meetings that we've had. So I think that we're definitely achieving something being fair to everyone here. And like you've indicated, Mr. Chairman, there will be changes down the road, but we have to get started somewhere. And we've compiled ideas from several other counties across the state when we put this together. Liz has put a lot, and others in administration have put a lot of work into researching what's worked for counties and what hasn't. And it has always been about fairness and county-wide effect, so.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman?
Ron, just
Ron?
tell us who you are and where you're from.
Ron
Where you-
Szymanski, Hale Township. Thank you, Commissioner Wright, for that information, because that addressed my first question. Is this economic development policy modeled after other counties? And can you give me a reference to some of the counties that you looked at to model this?
There's been bits and pieces for many,
Right.
as we visited other counties and cities. I remember conversations with Mower County, I remember Redwood. I don't know, Liz, others. I mean, we also had help from the University Economic Development team on this, that's been very helpful. So can you remember others where that this has been
Who knows
confirmed?
Albert Lee, which county, was that Mauer, or which county is that down there? We had some early help with, huh? Yeah,
That's Mower.
it's Mauer, okay, I know they were very helpful at the beginning.
Mr. Chair, the University Extension, when we first started out, directed me to a couple different counties to reference that would be similar to what we were looking to do, and what we put together was largely based off of Redwood County with some additional bits and pieces from others, but that was kind of the base of it. We did also refer heavily to the state statutes when we put all the language in together as well. And then we're also a part of Minnesota Association of County Economic Developers that I was able to send different questions and different verbiage out to the group and ask for feedback as
Okay.
well.
Good. So you've done a lot of good research, so thank you on that. The term eminent domain came up earlier in Mr. Albrecht's comments, and as I read the policy this afternoon, I was reading, highest and best use, blighted properties and those types of things, and I just wanted to, and I know the eminent domain question would come back to the county board eventually. My concern is that, in an economic development, I think if there is a blighted property, the transaction should be between a willing buyer and a willing seller and not by force of county authority. We've got to keep free enterprise going in Minnesota. And I think the question of eminent domain, I think, is if it's for a public purpose, a road or a facility or something, that's one thing, but if it's for a private enterprise, then I do not think that eminent domain should be applied in those types of situations. So, we can't conform the policy to state that here, but just as a heads up for future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone else that would like to address the board? Anybody on the board that would like to?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
is it possible for a person to get one from the city and one from the county?
So we've had that discussion.
We had
Liz,
it.
do you want to?
Yeah,
Liz,
we did consider that a few different ways, and different counties do different approaches with that. And where we landed that was, I think, the item number 9 that was removed, saying that if you're receiving another form of public financial assistance, you wouldn't be eligible to apply for the county. We ended up removing that in order to give a little bit more ability to partner with cities and other economic development entities, the state or mid-Minnesota. We didn't want to prohibit being able to partner in those situations.
So the hotel would be an example of it in Glencoe here.
Could be,
Could have been, yep.
if the cards align for something like that, yes.
And I have been, I sit on mid-Minnesota, and that can get convoluted, unfortunately, especially if you have a business that you backed and failed. Then it gets really convoluted, so it's something that you have to be careful with. In this day and age, it's so hard. they don't want you picking winners and losers, and you can't always say, well, you're worth it and you're not. So it doesn't always work that way, and I don't necessarily know I want it to, but does that help you, Commissioner Luther?
The topic of the abatement is definitely one that can be, pros and cons, but yet it is a very widespread recruitment tool. And it's one of the first questions out of the hat that come from a business looking to come into an area is what type of abatement policies do you have? And so without one, we're kind of left out of the ring at this point. And so, again, the language here makes it so that there's as much fairness as possible when the committee recommends to the county board for an abatement to take place. As was brought up even in our committee meetings, we're gonna have to get through a few to find out if this might be something we're gonna have to come back to and tweak someday. But until we see a couple opportunities go through the system as presented, we just need a place to start, so.
And again, for just an FYI, the reason we didn't participate in, we talked a little bit about Glencoe, we weren't ready. Our policy was
ready.
not set, and they were moving faster than our policy could be to have this hearing and to get it approved or disapproved, either one. Yet, we couldn't participate, so they were very cordial with us, and I actually, personally, I learned a few different things about how this operation works, but they didn't give us too bad a time that we just couldn't do it.
And I think that example in itself stresses how important it is to us to make sure that we have this right and that we have it fair. Because again, like the chairman had mentioned, we were not ready for that. And they were asking for it, but it was good conversation, but we just were not there to the point where we could be fair to others that would be asking for the same thing someday.
And by saying not ready, we didn't have our structure to figure out, how to actually handle it or who really qualified under what rules, lack of a better word, that we need to put in place. Any more questions? Okay,
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
motion's been made by Commissioner Luthens to close the public hearing. Is there a second by Commissioner Schmalz? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now, as far as consideration of approving our policy, is there a motion to do that?
Mr. Chair, I think the committee has done their due diligence in coming forward with a policy that's going to work for McLeod County to get us started on this new endeavor. I do appreciate the comments that have come forward today. I think that we've taken care of those concerns when you look at the mechanics, how we put the policy together. I think it's time to go. So I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Wright to approve the policy.
Second.
Is there a seconded by Commissioner Luthens? Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I intend to support the policy as presented. I think, like's been stated before, this is a starting point for us. And we're starting from zero, basically, as a county. So we're going to have some growing pains. That's been stated up here. It's not going to be the perfect document, but hopefully it's a document that we can start with and grow it from there. The weaknesses will show up. That's thanks to the public comments that were made tonight, pointing out some of the weaknesses that we'll have to deal with. But let's get a start on it. Let's see where it goes, and let's work together to make it a successful policy.
That would be, my comment was, as well as, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and I think with the composure of this board, we've done a few departments, and we've been lucky on getting them organized and structured to be beneficial, in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to that here as well. With the composition of this board, I think I appreciated all the input by the public, and I think they're all good and valid points, but with this structure, I think we'll get through it and take all them into consideration. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
McLeod County Jail, Will.
Good evening.
Good evening, Will.
I'm here for approval to purchase 10 more body cameras for the jail and one 8-bay docking station for a price of $38,609.42. As you know, the sheriff's office purchased body cameras. The jail thought we could share them. We tried it for a few months. It's not quite as easy and seamless, so that's why we're moving forward with this request now. We are also exploring getting reimbursed from the grant, the same one that the patrol used, so still waiting on that process. Probably won't know about that for a little while yet.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Nathan.
Having been briefed by Sheriff Langenfeld previously on this issue, I mean, it's the life and times we live in, and I'll support and move that grant the request.
Motion made by Commissioner Smalls to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wright. Discussion? I'll put you on a little bit of a spot. Well, there was one thing that when we were briefed by the sheriff, some of the challenges were changing those cameras. And you just want to expand on that a little bit for the public? I mean, that was one of the challenges with everything going on today, that what you had to do during shift change and whatnot, but.
Yeah, so you have to reassign them. You have to log into, you can either use your phone via an app or hook them to a computer, and with technology, that's not always 100% foolproof. So we were having to switch then, and then right at shift change, we were trying to hand off. And if there's a critical event or incident right at shift change, everybody's going to that, and then we're missing out on some footage. So having everybody have their own that's assigned to them is gonna hopefully alleviate all of that.
Any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Auditor Treasurer Connie.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'm here for one item, item A, to consider adopting Resolution 22 CB 43, authorizing me to make application to the Office of the Secretary of State for the Help America Vote Act HAVA Phase 2 Grant Award. In the 2021 first special legislative session, the Minnesota State Legislature authorized the distribution of $3 million from the federal HAVA appropriations as grants to political subdivisions. Earlier in 2022, the majority of Minnesota counties participated in Phase 1 of the HAVA grant, receiving approximately $2,650,000 of the overall $3 million available for the HAVA grants. Phase 2 will distribute all remaining 2022 funds, approximately $350,000, to the participating counties. McLeod County was notified October 24th of the $4,286.94 total grant that it was awarded, and has been waiting for the grant contracts to be distributed, which did occur on November 28th. These funds must be used to improve accessibility, implement security provisions for election systems, and/or for funding to other activities to improve the security of elections.
Questions for Connie?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Connie, do you have an idea about what you think you may spend the grant money on in the future?
First and foremost, of course, for security, as that's what the HAVA grant is intended for. And it will be, one of the items will be an upgrade to the election PC computer that is used for the software of elections.
And is that, I guess, just to get a concept of this, is that expensive? I mean, is that gonna take a good part of that money, or is?
That will be about half of the
Okay.
funds, and then there will be some additional needed for the software, because once the computer is upgraded, then the software along with it needs an upgrade. So I just don't know the cost of all of it, but it's probably going to be taken care of all with those two things.
Is that information all in-house? I mean, is that is it hooked up? It's not hooked up to the internet, okay. I know I'll get that question, and I didn't think so, but any other questions for Connie?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'll move Resolution 22 CB 43.
Motion made by Commissioner Smalls to move the resolution. Is there seconded by Commissioner Luthens? Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Health and Human Services. Barrett.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have, yes, good evening, yes. I have one item before you today, and that is to consider approving the agreement with Anoka County East Central Regional Secure Juvenile Center Detention and Treatment Facility, we often call it the RJC, in Lino Lakes, Minnesota, for the period of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2026, to contract for one bed or 365 days during a year at a cost of $295 per day with funds from the Human Service Fund. An example of how this contract will work is if the county has 3 beds being used in a month, that will constitute 90 days of the contract being used in that 1 month. These days can be banked if they are used in that calendar year and at RJC. The county is beginning its second year of a 5-year contract with the RJC, which has 13 member counties and more inquiring. The total cost for the 365 days is $107,675, billed in monthly invoices of $8,973 per month. And by entering into this contract, the county would save approximately $60 per day compared to its current agreement, for a total savings of $21,900 per year.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Barrett, just so everybody's clear, what if we aren't using any of the beds? Can you go over that?
We will still pay for those 365 days. Susan Sumnick and I did talk about this. We will almost guaranteed go over those days.
And I understand that,
Yep.
but that'll be a question that we need to get out there.
Yes.
All right.
And I'm gonna ask is, the numbers you're using here on what our savings would be, I assume was judged by the past, is that correct?
Those numbers that we used
What we
there.
would save by that $60 a day, I assume that was, the numbers were derived by what we would save.
If we did not enter this contract and be a member county and receive this new current rate, that would be that's gonna be what we save for just those 365 days. We'll save more because we're gonna use it more, but at that reduced rate.
But I guess I asked that because Commissioner Nagel made a good point, but that's the roll of the dice, that we're gonna
Correct.
make a substantial savings here. But with the history, we should be making that saving.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chair, something else that got pointed out in the workshop when this was discussed in greater detail was the fact that, and if I mess this up, you can correct me, but the fact that we have the ability now or somewhere to house these people where it's not taking staff time, and often we cannot, like it or not, the world we live in, we can't find a spot. This gives us priority, if you will, and it allows us to utilize jail staff time, law enforcement time, probation time, health and human services time more effectively, because we know where we're going.
Exactly, and right or wrong, being a member county by entering into this contract, this will give us priority over other counties. So if they have someone and we have someone, we get first priority.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the contract.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel to approve this contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barrett. Public Works, John.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, John.
First item to consider is to consider approving change orders 2, 3, and 4 for our state project 43-60111 and state aid project 43-60112. Those are the concrete overlays on County Road 1 this summer. Total additional cost with those three change orders is $92,652.69. You're wondering why it's change order 2, 3, 4. Change order 1 was approved on June 7th by the board. Change order 2 is for reclamation of the shoulders at a cost of $9,262.76. Change order 3 is to do, in lieu of reclamation of a portion of the project, we looked at some savings and changed it over to a shoulder overlay instead of the other piece, so that was a savings of $25,457.99. And change order 4 was to redo the culvert crossings on CD 13 and 29 at the direction of the board back on June 7th, 2022. That was at a cost of $108,847.92. Like I will add, other projects, change orders, happen. Initially, the board approves a contract with our contractor. Changes come up on a lot of projects like in others. And then, of course, we come to the board for those approvals. In the future, a lot of counties do, once the bid's approved up front, they do a contingency where you guys authorize us to do so much money before it comes back to the board, or maybe it's a % of the contract before we come back with changes, because changes are inevitable on a lot of the projects. So in the future, I think we'll look at a different mechanism for some of that, but right now, this is what's in front of us, how we've been doing it.
Okay, do they all have to be approved? I have no, I'll be honest about this, I have no problem with change orders 2 and 3, but I would like to hear a longer explanation of change order 4 that link into some of the procedures that were done. So is that something we can do?
Sure. I'll back up a little bit. So change order 1 was approved on June 7th. Change order 1 stemmed from the as constructed substantially improved condition survey that was recommended from Houston Engineering. That repair report was authorized on March 1st, right? Our project was let on December of 2021. Had we had those elevations, these culvert changes would have been in our initial project. We wouldn't have had to make them. They would have been in the initial project.
Just like we did on JD8?
Correct. Backing up even farther, stemming from the CD 32 issue we had, on County Road 15 a few years ago. We worked with Soil and Water and the ditch folks to get ahead of these. This is one where I think, if I understand, speaking with Ryan a little bit, the viewers had the project and it just lagged that long. So the report came out after the project was let. That goes back to change order number 1.
Do you happen to remember, brought it up, do you happen to remember, did the road authority pay for the engineering on the elevation on 15, or did the ditch?
I thought the ditch system did. I can't
And
recall.
I agree with you, because then that's where I'm a little stuck on maybe pulling that out, because I'm not so convinced that wasn't the responsibility of the ditch and not of the road authority, because in here, it's coming up here, is to approve that Houston Engineering part of this, and I think there's some double, there's some things going on with the as-built on these ditches that Houston is kind of getting, or the engineer is getting paid for doing it almost twice. I'm, in my opinion, what I know about drainage, I think it was the responsibility of the ditch to pay for that engine, to tell you what that culverts were supposed to be set at.
I can't speak for the ditch system. I know in the past, the road authorities have covered, or had to cover the cost
The
of culvert
cost,
changes.
yeah, that is correct.
So if it's the engineering is a piece of that, I guess that's a question for the ditch authority.
Well, again, it was a time thing, I understand it all, and again, I don't wanna take too much time in this meeting, but I'd like to weed out of here what we could pay and maybe table some of this and have a policy discussion or whatever, because I'm not sure that some of that money shouldn't come out of the ditch system.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
March 1st, there was a county ditch hearing at 1 o'clock. So I didn't find any minutes about what was done there. That when we accepted Houston's engineering report on March 1st?
So on March, if we think back, March 1st is when the board accepted the repair report for CD 13 and CD 29. That's when we knew what the as-constructed substantially improved condition elevations were gonna be. Once we knew that, we worked with our contractor, worked with Houston to get those, get the plans in place and, the correct hydraulics and everything for those culvert changes that were done with change order 1 back in June.
And we had, excuse me, you have a follow-up there yet? Go ahead.
Well, county ditch, or change order 1, back earlier, was $381,912.91.
Correct.
So are we using that number today, or is that gone, and we're just doing what you're presenting today?
So that's been spent. So the 381,912 was spent to redo the culverts back in the summer to the as-constructed elevations. At that time, the 381,912 covered removing the box culvert on CD 29 and installing a 36-inch plastic pipe. It included removing the north line of the arch pipe on CD 13 and putting in the 60-inch plastic pipe. That's change order 1.
And this is where, a lot of this is confusion, and it's for information for the board, but there was some, in my opinion, some policy issues that the engineering, when Houston was told to set as-built or elevation and the sizing of that culvert, we as commissioners became under a lot of scrutiny from the landowners on that watershed, that they had worked over years to get that bigger culvert in there, and Houston recommended a smaller culvert, so we had to take that, or our negotiations were to take that culvert back out and put a 60-inch back in it. And that's part of these costs, is that not correct?
That's change order 4.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that comes back to, and I know I've had conversations with the engineer as well, and they say that was the part that was engineered, and that's all that was necessary to put in. But the argument I got back from the landowners was that they had worked harder to get that bigger culvert in, and that's where that ditch meeting, and separate from road authority to drainage authority, why did we not just lower the culvert that was there? And I know it was a lot more expensive, I know your rationale, and I'm just trying to get through these, and I'm not sure tonight is exactly the way to get all the way through this, because we can't have these things happen again. It costs too much money.
All I can say is that Public Works installed the culverts on those ditches per the Drainage Authority. And then the board on June 7th directed us to modify those culverts. Take the 60-inch from CD 13, put that down at CD 29, and then use the existing barrel on the north line of CD 13 and relay it at the elevation given to us by the ditch engineers.
I'm not positive that the Drainage Authority did okaying. I think the board did, although it's the same people. But I don't know that the Drainage Authority did that, and if we did, we shouldn't have. And I do know that the crowding for time was a big factor here, because they were already starting to work on the road, and we needed to get it done. And I think the part that we instructed was to get to the elevation. The rest, I'm not sure of.
What, I guess, Commissioners, I'm not following you, because everything that I have in the packet tonight, from change order 1 back in June that you guys approved, to these culvert changes are all, I mean, we didn't go do anything out of the board authority. I'm not following the questions you're getting at.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
John, change order number 1 was at 381,000
Correct.
on June 7th.
Correct.
On change order number 4 was approved by the board on June 7th also. And
Change or no,
it's got ditch 13 and 29 in there.
change order 4, on June 7th, you directed us to work with the contractor. We didn't have pricing yet, we didn't have options yet to do the changes you directed on June 7th, which was to lower the north barrel of CD 13, to use that 60-inch.
Right.
And put it on the other ditch. We didn't have those prices yet. We went back, worked with the contractor under force account, and came up with change order 4. Change order 4 is the contractual document with the contractor that followed the directive you gave us on June 7th, to relay those, to do the culvert changes.
One more time. Change order 1 was June 7th for 381,000. That was to dig the hole, the trenches, and put the culverts in for 381,000.
Right, it was to do what I previously said with, it was to put a 60-inch plastic pipe at CD 13 on the north line. Those are 2 arches on that one. And it was to take the box culvert out of CD 29, remove the box culvert, and place a 36-inch plastic pipe.
Okay, here, I mean, I gotta clear there, because we can talk this for quite a while, but I checked with our county attorney, and the only thing we had that was authorized was to lower the culverts to the proper elevation. Any size change needed to be authorized by the drainage authority, and I can't find where we did that. And the reason I'm concerned about that, especially going future in policy, is that the argument that we had to do it twice, because the argument was then that the people on that system said they paid for that bigger cement culvert, and they wanted it back in the ground, and the negotiation was to get it back to, we negotiated to 60-inch. I mean, there's a whole lot more to say, so I mean, if we can clean this up a little bit and have a workshop on it, I would be interested, or whatever. What's the board's wishes?
Well-
We're owed, we have to pay, the money is owed and it's been spent and paid. The only one that's questionable to me, if there's time and it takes a lawyer to recommend that, is I believe that the Houston Engineering Fund should have been paid by the ditch authority, or by the watershed. Cause was not the rule. It's our money to put the culvert in at the right size and the right elevation, but the engineering should have been paid for by the drainage, by the benefited landowners.
Mr. Chair, I think
Go
at this point, I don't think we should take action on either of these items this evening. Recognizing a couple different things. Number one, we're under a little bit of a time constraint for the rest of our business for tonight. Number two, I'm starting to get a little bit confused myself as to what action to take, and I think we need to have a time to get perhaps our ditch inspector in here as well to help fill in some gaps in the explanation. These are the costs, and we've been caught before. My district is an example of a road project time over time that has left a culvert by 2 different road authorities in the wrong place. And then we come back later and we do ditch engineering, and then we got everything at the wrong elevation, and we spend a ton of money trying to fix that. We do need to have perhaps a different approach here, because it takes a long time to redetermine benefits. It takes a long time to get to get a ditch plan together, and then all of a sudden our funding is lined up on the highway side, and there's been a lot of activity on road projects and ditch activity in the same place over the past few years, and we're kind of getting caught where we've got an excavator sitting there, and what do we do? And so that is something that we need to fix, the five of us. As for tonight, I think we need to either find a way to table this or just prolong this activity if it can, so that we can have an opportunity, perhaps after our next board meeting, to have a workshop on it, and then see if we're gonna divide these costs out differently. We do have a meeting coming up with these two ditches next week. We can also have discussion on it at that point, but I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight the way it's looking to me.
Mr. Chair, John, is that gonna be a problem if we hold out?
If we want to talk about it on the 20th, the only thing to me is, well, Houston will probably hold the invoice, right? They can wait another probably 30 days. But the other one is the quote to an upcoming item farther down. We want to table that for another, if you want to talk about it on the 20th, and we can act on it.
One, we maybe don't have, I mean, we can take it one, we still would need to go through all his items, so
Well, number one, item A, we can table.
Mr. Chair, I move to table item A.
Second.
motion made and seconded to table item A. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Item-
Number A is tabled.
Yeah, item B deals with the prices we paid Houston to, redo the hydraulic engineering on all those culverts and so forth. If you want to table that, I would think we can do that.
Move the table.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to table B, but I know Mike's not here, but I can hear his voice in my ear. Table to when?
Table to December, excuse me, it's not my motion, but to December 20th, I would say.
Just add it on.
In the workshop?
I don't think that's adequate, because
think
we
it's
won't have a
gotta
chance
be
to talk about it
beyond
until
that.
the 20th. We're at the first board.
Well,
board
let's
meeting
do
in
it, let's,
2023.
can we add to the motion to put it to a workshop on the 20th and then revisit it at the
Mr. Chair,
following?
you don't need to put the workshop detail in there, but you would need the table date until, and I believe it's on January 3rd, 2023, that you would be tabling it to.
I have that.
And that's fine, but I still would like to ask us to workshop, because that's kind of a
Right.
condition
Yeah,
of getting
that's-
there.
that's a
so.
given. Workshop and board meeting on the 3rd.
So I'd like to make sure the first motion was amended to say that.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Fine with you in the second, second?
Yes.
Okay. And this motion, that be added as well. So, all in favor of that, with that addition, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, now we're on C, is that
Item
right?
C, yeah, item C is to consider approving a quote from Hancock Concrete, Hancock, Minnesota, for fuel surcharge and 115-inch span RCP culvert material to lengthen the CD 13. So when we did all those culvert changes, we used the existing arch pipe and lowered it by number of feet, which ends up the culvert's too short. So this culvert, this is the material quote to the materials that we need to extend that culvert.
Is
And
that the
this,
north culvert?
in the north line, correct. The,
That's the south one of the north, though, right?
no, the north one.
Is that the one we did replace, was the north one?
No.
Or that's the one that needs to be,
We replaced it, and then you guys directed us to take that replacement piece and put it on that other pipe. That's what change order 4 did.
I thought on ditch 13, I thought we only touched one of them. Did we replace both of them pipes?
Just the north line.
Just, okay, then
Yeah,
I'm good. I
yep.
just didn't know it was the north or the south line. I'm okay with that.
Yep, so that extends it. Part of the reason for it is these arch pipe are out till spring or later, so that's what that
I
represents.
think this is a reasonable request, even though we have some other confusion, but with that, there's part of that condition, and I talked to you about that earlier, there's one of them two pipes that same contractor, I believe it's the same contractor, was supposed to clean that other pipe, and I would like to somehow get that in here, that has to get done.
That'll be part of this. So initially we thought that was gonna be a part of the project. It was missed in the project documents, but we plan to include it with the cleaning of the south line when we install this one this summer.
Okay, then just my comment would be that I'm okay with that, as long as that's included to clean that other
Well, it'll be included when we hire the contractor. This is
Correct.
just for materials.
Okay.
So we'll
Oh,
come
this is
back to
just
you,
for-
and
Okay,
we'll come back to you with quotes this spring, summer, when we get prices to install it.
okay, the rest,
John,
my
Mr. Chair,
comments are out there, go ahead.
John, haven't we already paid to clean that one out? In our
No.
change orders?
No, the cleaning wasn't included. I double checked with Andrew. It got omitted from the previous plans.
Okay, thank you.
So we didn't pay for it. It wasn't covered twice. Hasn't been done, hasn't been paid either.
Okay, so we have right now a quote from Hancock Concrete for the 42,759.
Correct.
That's the word to approve. Okay,
And with
Yep.
the lead time, it's, I agree.
okay, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Wright and seconded by Commissioner Schmaltz to approve. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. D.
Item D is to consider a quote from Lester Buildings out of Lester Prairie, Minnesota, to replace 19 windows at the fairgrounds on the horse barn and 10 windows on the poultry building. Cost for those not to exceed $15,000. That's for the material only. I'm sorry, that's, 15,000 includes everything. So that cost is based on material fees of $8,837.75 and estimated labor fees of $3,000. And then we did have a second quote from Shower out of Glencoe for $23,000. So we're looking for approval not to exceed 15.
So that 15 is not to exceed?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
This is just a continual maintenance, as everything is getting to be 20-plus years old. So I'll make a motion to approve and the not to exceed.
Motion made by Commissioner Wright to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Nagel. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item E is sticking with the fairgrounds. We have a quote from Summit Fire Protection out of St. Paul to upgrade the Ansel fire suppression system in the Country Diner kitchen. That's been out of compliance for a long time. If we do this, we could get that back into a commercial kitchen. The quote for that was $3,695, and we have another quote from Brothers out of Wade Park for $3,802.
Mr. Chair, not only is it a good idea to keep up on the fire prevention system, but also this will increase our ability to bring uses, as let us now be a fully certified commercial kitchen. Move to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Wright to approve, seconded by Commissioner Schmaltz. I totally agree that that technology is changing fast, and it's probably one of the more dangerous parts in any building that has a kitchen. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item F, we'd like to consider hiring Chad Bandus out of Silver Lake to plow County Road 103. That's our state aid road in Biskie. That would be utilizing a pickup truck, and we'd like to do that for the upcoming, the current snow season we're in, 22-23 snow and ice season. Chad's rate is $74 an hour. Some of the rationale with that, Chad does Biskie anyway, by having him do Biskie, our crews will save 40-plus minutes during a typical snow event. We're able to stay on the mainline system. It makes a lot of sense. We're running our trucks at, $200 plus an hour, and we can pay Chad $74 an hour to do it.
Didn't we do this last year too?
We hired Chad last year I think we hired him to do it on a regular basis. I can't remember if it was regular or emergency, but
I know there was a savings.
he's done it
from-
before, yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead.
it sounds to me like a good plan, and not, we're not, or we're well protected as far as the charge goes. And with that, I'll say, I move approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Schmaltz to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
And last item G, we'd like to consider hiring Steve Reiner from Hutchinson, Minnesota, on an on-call backup basis to assist with snow plowing. That'll be mainly on the gravel system, and Glencoe, Sumter, Hassan, Lynn, Collins. Steve's rate is $225 an hour. We did hire him, or have him hired, I think it was last year, on an emergency basis. Right now, we're getting close. We should have a full maintenance staff within a few weeks, I understand. So this may not even be needed, but who knows what'll shake out with future COVID, whatever, and so I think it's a good idea to have them on hand for a
Well,
backup.
first of all, it's good to hear you got, our staff is up there. That's the most important part. Secondly, I know that we had talks with other townships, and it's hard without giving them a regular route, even when it snows or when it doesn't, because you can't expect people to have people on call and not pay them. Did you, and you discussed all this with Reiner? I mean, I'm familiar with Reiner, and I know he does a good job, I mean, but he struggles with help as well, so he's
Well,
okay.
Yeah, Eric, our maintenance manager, has been in touch with Steve,
Good.
and yeah.
I see, one of our townships guys had his hand up.
Yes, Donald Norbeck from Penn Township. Penn Township has a verbal agreement with the Highway Department for roughly 4.5, 5 miles of County Road 52, south of Brownton, a gravel road. If need be, we're just on retainer with the Highway Department. Is that $225 per hour going to include those of us that have a verbal agreement with you?
I think we'll have to revisit that. The verbal agreement, my understanding, would have been just last season.
Last season's verbal agreement was somewhere around $120 or $130 per hour. Of course, with the fuel increases and so forth, my board has agreed to be on retainer if need be, and I'm able to fit it into our route. But when we see that number, and my board sees the number Monday night, they are probably going to say, I don't know if we will plow for that. So I need to find out where we're going to be
I would
at.
say, given our staffing levels right now, that's coming on board, and with the coverage from Biskey and the backup emergency services from Steve, we won't need any other services at this time. If we do, I think we gotta renegotiate a written agreement with the townships or whoever we wanna come forward
I'm
with.
satisfied with that statement. I mean, obviously, we can't have two different rates, so, I mean, if that works out, you get that squared away, otherwise I'm okay with what you
We'll
just went
talk
through.
in-house and revisit that if we wanna regroup with the townships that
Well,
we
I
looked
think
at
we all
last year.
prefer in-house if it's feasible, but
Well, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item G.
motion made by Commissioner Nagel to approve item G. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Sheila is sitting in for Mike.
Thank you. Item A, consider adopting resolution 22-CB-42, approving the appointment of Ryan Hanch as of December 13, 2022, as an assistant McLeod County Attorney with funds from the county attorney budget 01-091. Due to the resignation of an assistant McLeod County Attorney, Zach Lingus, it is being requested to appoint Hanch as an assistant McLeod County Attorney until he is sworn in as McLeod County Attorney on January 3rd, 2023.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Schmalz. Any discussion? Totally in agreement with it. It's a good plan.
We're very lucky that Mr. Hanch is agreeing to do this, so
Right.
thank you.
We're doing yeoman's work here, I believe, on that one. So, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We can go into county administration, but seeing the time, we're gonna dispense with our calendars for tonight, so, Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item A, consider approval of the updated McLeod County Health and Human Services Policy safeguarding federal tax information, which was included in your packet and reviewed at the last county workshop.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, consider approval of the updated acceptable use policy portion of the McLeod County Personnel Policy, again included in your packet and reviewed at your last meeting workshop.
Move approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Schmalz to approve,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item C, notification of McLeod-Renville Joint Drainage Authority public hearing on the petition for partial abandonment of sub-branch 4 of Branch 4 of Joint Ditch 4. The Drainage Authority will hear public comment regarding the partial abandonment at 10 o'clock a.m. Thursday, December 22nd, 2022, in the Martin McLeod Boardroom here at McLeod County Government Center, 520 Chandler Avenue North, Glencoe, Minnesota. And item D, notification of board workshop following the board meeting on Tuesday, December 20, 2022, at the McLeod County Government Center, 520 Chandler Avenue North, Glencoe, Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else that should come before the board for the good of the county? Open forum. Anyone wish to address the board? Press relations? Seeing none of any of the above, is there a motion to recess the meeting until 9 a.m. Tuesday, December 20th, 2022, here at the McLeod County Government Center, 520 Chandler Avenue North in Glencoe, Minnesota? Motion made by Commissioner Smallson, seconded by Commissioner Luthens. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're recessed.
Good job, you got 4 minutes left.
The chair.
That's yours. Oh, thank you.